Still waiting for a couple, it seems.
Everybody have a lovely Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Mm.
Good.
Blessedly on Thanksgiving, I got to stay at home. The day after, for the weekend, I had to travel, visit
Uh,
relatives.
yeah, we went down to Connecticut to hang out with my son and his wife and their three kids and her sister and her four kids. So we had seven kids under the age of, well, six of them under the age of nine, and one 12-year-old who was in the eye rolling early adolescent stage. But there was lots of happy screaming and lots of good food, and we had a good time. So,
Excellent.
yeah.
Okay. So
Hi,
who are we
everyone.
missing? Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Who are we missing? It looks like
Brian
uh, Brian.
and Tony.
So I just got a note from Jennifer. We're currently live on Bourne TV.
Oh, okay.
Wow. Okay. Good morning to our vast audience on Bourne TV. I've been tracking that. It looks like we get 6 or 8 viewings uh, when it does go up on YouTube afterwards. So that's good. Okay, so that's Jennifer there.
Yeah,
Okay, so we're still missing two. Who are we missing? We're missing Brian
Brian
and
and Tony.
And Tony.
Tony.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll give it a minute here.
There's Tony.
Yes, Tony. Yeah.
Good morning, Tony.
And just as a follow-up on that comment about Bourne TV, the note from Jennifer in the chat says that as long as we stay at 8 a.m. Thursday, then she will broadcast us live.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
There's Brian.
Good morning. Okay, perfect timing. It's 8 o'clock, and I'd like to call the last meeting in November to order. And in terms of attendance, we have 100% attendance, Wendy, so you can note that.
Got it.
You might also note that in addition, we have we're live on Bourne Community Television, thanks to Jen McGrail, and we may have unnamed citizens who are watching us, or residents, actually anybody else who signs in online. And with that, the next item of business is review of minutes. I must admit, because of press of other things, I didn't get to look them over, Wendy, the ones that came in last night.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't get those done sooner, but life happened.
That's okay. I didn't actually get a chance to read them either.
All right
Okay.
then.
Oh,
My capacity is actually getting better for the first time in 4 years. So I did read them and they were pretty good. I think I sent you one comment, Wendy.
I haven't opened my email yet this morning. It's too damn early, but I will check
yeah.
and
I
see.
read them over and they look fine to me.
They did to me too.
Well, awesome. Okay. And with respect to I'll find out whatever Brian had in there and reflect those. With respect to your subcommittee group meeting, should those get properly submitted as an attachment to the main meeting, or do they get given separately?
Well, my proposal was to include them as a, what do you call it, as a deliberated document to the minutes to this meeting. My understanding of the open meeting law is as long as we don't have a quorum, then we're not an official meeting. We don't need official minutes. But Tony
Okay.
did a nice job summarizing what we did, and my suggestion is we just include him as an addendum to this meeting.
That's what I figured. And including the chart, which was very
Yeah,
handy.
absolutely.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Great chart.
Glad you like it.
Okay. With that, I think we have, with regard to the minutes, it looks like we have a quorum who actually read it. So among the quorum who read it, Wendy, Brian, can you just discuss what your minor change was?
Oh, it's just maybe a misheard word in, let me,
Yeah,
So
and
it's at the
I
level
had
of a typo.
oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, you know, I
close to,
haven't been through it for
close to
typos,
it.
and I did have
Okay.
one question, but which we can address really rapidly.
Okay.
What
It
you
was
got,
the
Brian?
Comcast. Hold on, I'm going through the thing to find it again.
Well, while he's looking, I put down at the bottom attachments for the letters said after approval from this select board. Do I attach those? And if so, which ones were they?
I don't remember that at last meeting there were any new letters.
Okay. I don't believe I've attached any letters to the select board to my minutes, but I've things
They
jump
were in
around a lot sometimes.
they were in the select board packet, so they
Okay.
did become public.
So
the letter was
they're
in the select board packet, so they are available through the select board. Yes,
so I don't
in
have to worry
public
about
meeting.
that. Okay. Let's see.
Wendy, if you'd like the fully executed version of the letter to MBI, I forwarded that to everybody. I can send you that again after the meeting.
I have that. I just wasn't clear on which ones if any, that I should attach to our minutes. But if they go to the select board, that's where they are, and that's fine.
They'll show up on the select board agenda.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Moving forward, then, if we are then done with the minutes, can the
I actually have a question on it because I found the section. I want to make sure we edit it correctly.
Okay.
It's H under the area challenge model on the second page.
Yeah, got it.
MBI letter, and it was number 1. And so the part that I think was misheard is note that if Comcast gets the grant money, they will not use it overbuild, but likely for underground expansion. I think the underground is the maybe misheard bit.
Okay.
It's probably just broadband expansion. I'm not sure exactly, but they don't typically build underground Comcast in this area.
Okay, I did write that down in quotes, but if somebody did not say that, fine. So just for broadband, for general broadband expansion, expansion, yes. Yes, no, maybe.
I would think because they on the Cape don't have any or almost no underground other than in the areas without poles.
Right. You can almost just stop at will not use it to overbuild.
Yeah.
Because Comcast already goes to every residence in town.
I'm trying to think what else could have been said since the minutes have to reflect what was said, but it just seems like it was
I think what was said
typo.
That my recollection of the conversation was something about, well, if they do say upgrade an underserved property, then they would use it, maybe to serve others on that same line. Remember that conversation we were saying that's what I remember anyway.
To upgrade their existing service as opposed to adding more. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, right. They won't use it to overbuild, but they'll use it to upgrade existing service. Right. That's probably the best way to
maybe if they drop the word underground, it makes sense there. We'll not use overbuild likely for expansion, period.
Yeah.
And that's probably what was said.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, with that change, I'm going to take a vote among the 4 people who actually read the minutes, since that is a quorum. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So I'm going to list that. Wendy, list that as 4 in favor, none opposed, and 3 abstentions.
Okay. Just a sec. Two things at a time. All right. None opposed, 3 abstentions, 4 positive. Okay. Gotcha. Okay, moving on.
So,
Okay.
so Bob, before we go to the next item, I have a question about November 15th. So we posted an agenda for a meeting on November 15th. I think we have to have minutes according to my understanding of the open meeting law. Did anybody else concur with that opinion?
Was that the subcommittee on priority setting?
No.
No. That was
What was
that was the attendance at the Technology Council forum.
Was there deliberation?
We didn't have a quorum.
We didn't have a quorum. There were only 3 of us assigned to talk, and I think
I couldn't make it, so
it's not who's assigned to talk, it's who was there.
Right.
I think we had a quorum. It was me, John, Brian.
I was there.
And Bob.
Okay.
But Brian was on the Tech Council, right, Brian? You were serving as
liaison.
You're the liaison to the Tech Council, right? So
yes.
I don't know if you counted as a quorum because you were acting on. I'm not sure on that actually.
Was there deliberation at the meeting?
It was just
it
was a Q&A. There was no deliberation between. There was no deliberation between
members.
The members there. It was a Q&A.
Okay.
You can attend without deliberating, and it's not an official meeting.
That's what I thought we discussed at our previous meeting for exactly that purpose.
We did discuss that. I'm just pointing out that the way it's going to look on the website is that we had a meeting and never posted minutes.
If if a question comes up, you know what, we can always just refer to Steve Smith's minutes for the meeting. Okay, just
all right, that's fine.
Okay.
And the point is that what did come up, which was mostly our questioning of the Verizon representative, which was mostly me, is all we discussed that in the following meeting in detail, and that is public.
That's fine.
That's in our minutes.
So. Right, exactly.
Okay.
So shall we just not approve the minutes from 11:15 and just pretend they don't exist, or for the purposes of this line?
Why don't you just make a note that we did not keep separate minutes for November 15th, and by reference, we incorporate the minutes from the Cape Cod Technology Council Infrastructure Committee meeting.
Oh, okay. I like that. I like that idea. Yeah, incorporate
by reference is very professional. I like that.
Yeah, include Steve's. Yeah, if we include Steve's minutes, that's great.
Yeah.
Idea.
You might also want to make a note that no deliberation happened as well.
Good idea.
Yeah.
And then make the reference to the discussion was held at a subsequent CTAC meeting.
Okay.
I appreciate all the knowledgeable bodies about open meeting law, because definitely a big blind spot for me. My first time.
We'll find out about them in detail the first time we transgress. We miss something. Okay.
I was wondering, do we have to ask the Secretary of State for a clarifying question? I did the training. I'm like, I don't think that one was covered. That's too complicated to be in the hour compliance training.
If anyone watching on Bourne Community TV has any questions about this, please send us a message through the message on the SciTac web page on the townofbourne.com website, and we will in fact get back with an answer to you. And if we will pursue a higher authority if we don't understand it or can't give you an answer that we can understand. Okay,
should I
moving on.
request the minutes and a recording just for, request it from Steve?
Yeah, Steve sent them out. They should be in the email. I'll send them along if you can't find them.
Thank you, Brian. Okay. And thank you, Jed. Okay, moving on. Review of public correspondence. We have 2 items of quote correspondence that came in, both of which were calls and voicemails into the town, into the administrator's office.
Oh.
The first was from a company that basically was selling fixed Wi-Fi, and they basically specialize in providing fixed Wi-Fi to very rural areas where there's absolutely no way to get any other service into a rural residence for any municipality, et cetera, or company that can't extend their lines there. And I told him, I said, with very few exceptions, most of our problems have to do with slow service, gaps in service, undependable service, et cetera. But we're in the process of identifying through a digital equity survey if we do have any gaps like that, and we have his name on file. And the next is, and I'm going to defer to Anne Marie, was another phone call. This one came in from Comcast asking for a letter of support. And Anne Marie, would you? I have not responded to that one yet, but Anne Marie listened to the voicemail. Would you like to just summarize that?
It was basically exactly that. It was a very quick, short voicemail, reaching out to the town administrator with respects to requesting a letter of support for the application, for the GAP grant application process. That was pretty much it. And so Marlene forwarded to me, and then Bob and I had a conversation about, what the next steps are and what the response should be.
And
okay, well, the summary was that at least as far as Verizon, we were not going to submit a letter of support, and for consistency, we probably should take the same response for Comcast.
Well, I would say unless they're willing to promise, something specific, which Verizon was.
Verizon, I'd be open to viewing a Comcast
we want the money, but we don't even know if we're going to spend any of it in your town.
I'm agnostic. If they came forward, I'd look at it.
As a refresher for what we have in the minutes for last time around, this is pretty much what we told the speaker from Verizon, and I'm assuming that this is going to be our sort of pro forma response to anybody who wants a support letter. It says, we could not commit to you. She wouldn't commit to anything. So CTAC recommends that such a letter should include criteria for such support, cite gaps in broadband coverage and access within Bourne, and a request that Bourne be an area to be served. That is, that some of the money received be earmarked for service expansion here. And would also request good data to support our area challenge. And is that pretty much what you want to say to Comcast also?
I will, if I can interject here. So I was on a meeting call yesterday with the Assembly of Delegates. Verizon was on the agenda with the same request to the Assembly of Delegates. They voted to move it forward to the full Assembly. They didn't render an opinion either or, but that it is going to be moved forward to the Assembly of Delegates for next Wednesday. And I think one of the things that we need to realize is that regardless of whether they get the letter of support, Verizon is identifying 9 communities on Cape Cod that are considered underserved. And through that grant process, if they identify Bourne as one of those communities in their grant, they will service Bourne. Same thing with Comcast. That's part of the RFP. So whether we send the letter or not in support, we have been identified as a community that's underserved. And from yesterday's conversation, Verizon said, if they're coming into the community, ABC, they didn't specifically say Bourne, but if they're coming into community ABC, then they're not just serving the underserved, they're going to serve the whole community. That was the statement. Now, there was no elaboration on that. And that was the question I asked, because I said, whether you get the letter or not, are you going to serve the community? And she said, when we identify, ABC, and I think they're going to soon tell us what those communities are, because they're sending notifications. Same thing with Comcast. So, it's kind of an unusual position to be in, because I know that the concern is that we're not going to be identified any longer as underserved. But is it an opportunity to build a relationship and see what we can get and leverage that? They are starting over the bridge down towards Chatham, I think, is their ending point from the conversation yesterday. I believe she said Chatham.
This is Verizon. This is Comcast or Verizon you're talking about?
This is Verizon.
This is Verizon.
So this is Verizon, Fios to home, 100 up, 100 down, and then the 1 gigabyte for whatever new. So that's the conversation that was had yesterday. And the result of that with the Assembly of Delegates was to move it forward to the full delegation. That's what I have on that. I don't have any more information from Comcast other than I'm guessing that's the same approach. Identifying towns in the RFP, and the towns they identify are the towns they have to serve. But I'm pretty sure they're going to announce. I know Mary Jane did have conversation with Ellen from the result of the letter that we sent, and they were going to announce soon. That was the message.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so who issued the RFP? Is that the Assembly of Delegates or
no?
MBI.
Verizon was
the
on
MBI. Okay,
the MBI issued the MBI issued the grant round one.
This is the gap,
and there was some. This is for the grant, right? The gap funding, the gap grant process. And there was there's some misconceptions that they thought Verizon was applying for the grant for municipalities. So there was clarification there. And some people assumed they were applying for municipalities. And there was, no, they're not applying for municipalities. They're applying as their own separate entity, identifying municipalities of need.
Okay.
So this is a deviation from what Ellen said to us, which was very non-committal. So, I don't know what she said. I mean, are you at liberty, Anne-Marie, to discuss what she said to Mary Jane in regards to our letter and what kind of commitment they might want to make? Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
There we go. Third time's a charm. I reached out to Mary Jane, and the only feedback I got from her at this point was she was not able to discuss details until the formal announcement, which should be soon. That's the conversation she had with Mary Jane. That's what Mary Jane said.
Formal announcement from whom?
Verizon.
From Verizon.
Yeah.
Okay. So
there'll be some files, but the rollout, obviously we don't know what that rollout looks like because there's a feasibility economically wise, how much money they get, what and how they're going to divvy that up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that rollout, we don't know. We don't know that rollout.
Anne-Marie, just a question. The deadline for response on this is for them is the 11th, as I recall.
Yes.
Okay. So the only select board meeting that will happen before that is next Tuesday, the 5th, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So basically, if we're going to do a letter, we need to decide now. If we're going to do letters. And
I have a draft being finished up by someone as we speak. So if we punt this to later in the call, I might have something for you.
So I'm just a little curious about the timeline here. So we're waiting for Verizon to make an announcement, or are they waiting for an RFP from MBI before they can make some kind of commitment?
No, they're filling out the application process now, and their deadline date to file the application is December 11th.
I'm sure they're scrambling right now in their tech guys trying to figure out if they get $20 million, how to divvy up the $20 million and cover as many towns as they can. Basically, get as much as they can done with the 20 million.
And they're also matching, so it's more than 20 million, right? Because they're also matching.
That will be number one. I need to call back the person from Comcast, and I'll ask him exactly those questions. Have they identified the towns that they've identified as underserved, and are they going to make that public? Number two, are they going to match any money that they get for their portion of this this grant? Of course, it doesn't matter because I'll be making the call after we have to vote on a letter here.
I can answer those because way that the grant rules are written. So Comcast would be just expanding its actually, let me take that back. I gotta double check I gotta check gap. Is gap 100 or is it 100 and by 25 up? What's the build out requirements?
I thought it was 100 by 20.
Yeah, so if it's 100
that's
by
what
20,
I read also.
If it's 100 by 20, they're just going to expand to the parcels they've missed. So a Verizon plan would be very different than a Comcast plan. Both of them require the matching funds, which at some point we probably need to state our grievances about if we're a municipal application should be have some options to waive that, but they never included that in the rules. But yeah, so it'd be a very different plan. Verizon versus Comcast would be wildly different, is what it would look like. So we kind of would need to see the details.
Well, we're not going to see the details. That's the problem.
Anne Marie, did you get any impression from Mary Jane regarding whether or not she feels it would be a good thing for the town to write a letter of support to Verizon? Because maybe they revealed something to her that they don't want to say in public.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I think, there has been conversation that Verizon's here to stay and we have to build a relationship with them and Comcast. And if it includes, if we can get out of them that they're going to serve, bring some kind of better service to us and build upon that, then, maybe that's something we should jump on board with.
Right.
We haven't talked about it to the full committee. That hasn't been a conversation we've had with the full committee. So that's
I'm thinking at the time of the timeline and what's involved. I mean, if what you're saying seems to possibly suggest that Verizon is serious about expanding, and we're not quite sure because we haven't talked to Comcast yet, but dealing with the Verizon picture, if they're serious about expanding, then the town has very little time to write a letter of support. But assuming that they have implied that they would help the town of Bourne, then it might be a good idea for us to do it, only because it might put us in a more favorable position regarding, where they spend that money. But I agree with everybody here that if they're not going to give any, if they're not going to tell us something, give us an inkling of what's going on, for all we know, the money's all going to go to Sturbridge. I have no idea.
So the key point and the key piece of information here is Verizon identified 9 communities on Cape Cod, and those 9 communities and I can't say definitively, but from the conversation yesterday with the Assembly of Delegates, those 9 communities will be identified in the grant process. And if they identify those 9 communities in the grant process, they have to serve those 9 communities. And her comment was that if we're bringing service to town ABC, right? If the grant's serving the underserved, they basically are going to serve the whole community because there's going to be crossover. So
it's misleading.
That's the statement she made.
Right. So do we know? But we have no idea who the 9 communities are. And do we know what the date is that they're going to reveal? Which
we don't know that announcement. Like I'm going to guess, but December 11th. I mean, once they submit, then we'll know, right?
Brian, why is that just misleading?
So it's based off individual parcels. So the GAP grant is more has less ambiguity, so to speak, than BEAD, and so it's going to be parcels have been identified that are underserved. So basically means don't have Comcast. And so they're going to build to the places that don't have Comcast, and everybody along that route they can serve along the way. But that doesn't necessitate that they're going to have to do the whole community. It's just as like they just got to tick off the parcels for the money. 20 million was only going to be a couple hundred miles total, so there's no way to cover a whole community on a GAP grant. So it's just going to be strategic where they're going to place it. So it's not going to be the whole
with the
community.
Right, the GAP money they have to serve the underserved, but I was under the impression that they're going to use that GAP money for that, but they're also going to use monies to serve the whole community.
Yeah, that's how I looked at it too.
That's how I looked at it. Because why wouldn't
right.
they?
Well,
there's going to be crossover anyway.
Because it's going to cost a humongous more money than they're going to be getting from this grant, even if they match it. And it's not going to be enough to serve the entire.
They don't have to do it immediately. It could be they could do it 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. Like so the fiber. The cool thing with the fiber is anywhere that gets built is you can reuse the network and expand from there. So
that's right.
It's just a little misleading without a hard plan in front of us, a timeline. Like here's where we're going to do it. Here's where we're going to build out after. Like so, we kind of need to be a little more specific.
Can I just interrupt here? I just want to just talk about the timing here. Okay, the letters would need to come from the select board. The select board would need to approve them next Tuesday night. This committee ideally should review and approve those letters prior to Tuesday night. Right now, Brian, no matter how fast you are, we don't have a draft in front of us. And I frankly don't want to waste a whole lot of time here. Would anybody be available on Tuesday morning for an 0800 short meeting to review and approve a draft of the letter to the select board? Anne Marie, could we put an item on the agenda to go before the select board and then just have that tomorrow night on their agenda, and we don't have the draft fully approved by us and into an amended packet until Tuesday morning? I think that happens all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I can ask. I'll see Mary Jane. I have to be out. I have to be out of here at 9 anyway because I have to see. I have a 10 o'clock at town hall, and I have to be at the office before that. So, but I won't have an answer to that until I talk to Mary Jane.
Well,
she's setting the agenda.
How don't they have to have the agenda set like 48 hours before their meeting?
The agenda's usually set. She usually sets it on Thursday so they can post on Friday.
Okay, well, today is Thursday, and if they post it tomorrow,
so I'm meeting.
That letter's going to have to be done today, and I think we can do that.
We're kind of off we're only on the set. It was actually correspondence, so it's later on.
Understood, but again, the voicemail triggered the whole thing. But
right.
But having said that, again, one proposal again would be to ask Mary Jane to put something on the agenda about this,
right.
And then for us to put a small subcommittee together to draft something. Meet on Tuesday morning with a noticed meeting, which means the notice would have to go out today. Okay, and then forward that to the full select board that night, and put that into an amended packet immediately after we approve it on Tuesday morning.
The other option is that we respond to both Verizon and Comcast, and perhaps say that in round 2 or the second phase of grant funding, we could draft a letter. I don't know, in the event that they don't get any monies first round, that they go for second round, because there are 2 rounds. I don't know.
And basically just punt that the timing isn't right for our approval process.
Right. I mean, that's an option too, because you can respond, Bob, from both to Verizon and to Comcast, indicating that if you'd like. That doesn't need to be a drafted letter through the select board, because they did reach out, and I did forward you the voicemail.
Yep.
So I made you that contact.
Okay. So I'm sorry, you lost me there. So you're going to ask for action. You're going to ask Mary Jane to put a letter to Comcast and Verizon on the agenda for Tuesday, and we're going to have a noticed meeting for a subcommittee of our group to polish that letter, and then that's going to go to the select board next Tuesday, or what?
The other option is for me to call both of those entities, tell them that we're deliberating about this, but because of the press of the open meeting requirements, etc., for our committee and for the select board, we cannot get a letter out by December 11th. And
I second that phone call and not move to a letter.
I'm all for that.
I agree.
Okay.
So we're not gonna do the letter.
We're not doing the letter now. Again, when we get to round 2, we will consider an earlier request. I'm just going to try to read into MBI's mind in terms of getting out this money. If Comcast or Verizon were to put something in their grant and said just because of the press of time they weren't able to get formal letters, but Bourne is very interested in meeting the needs of underserved and unserved areas, and in general would support expansion of high-speed internet, period. And I'm sure if they threw that in there, MBI would look favorably on that.
It's point-based, so if nobody has it, it's a non-issue as far as the scoring, because of the time. MBI sets the time frame. No one has any time to react to this. That might be a comment to MBI that these fire drills are challenging and need to be considered as far as a municipal timeline to respond to things in future programs.
If they ask this of each of the 351 cities and towns, this is absolutely an impossible situation. So whoever gets a letter in gets money. No, that's not how it's going to work. Whoever has the biggest need and can be filled most efficiently is the one who's going to get the money, according to the proposals. And whether of course a town is going to support it. No town is going to say, no, we don't want you to come in. We don't want Verizon to come into our town.
Yeah.
Is it possible for us to write a letter that basically has a proviso with it that says to MBI, we support Verizon, but only if they are making efforts to add service to the town of Bourne? Just make it clear. Just say we support their efforts to expand, and they will have our full support if they are planning to expand services in the town of Bourne.
Okay, I just put up in the chat, for those of you who didn't get a chance to read the minutes, the language that we talked about last time. And I think what I'm hearing is that you want to have language like this in whatever we do. And we'd love it if MBI would pay attention to that. Is that what we're talking about?
My feeling is that we need to proceed without doing a letter. The timing is just way too tight.
I understand that, but at some point something's going to have to be in writing.
Yeah, after the first of the year, maybe. I mean, a lot could happen between now and then. The next round, I don't think, is until February.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yeah, the deadline for the next round, I believe, is April.
Yeah, plenty more time for round 2. And they'll probably find somewhere in Western Mass is greater need, where they'll look at the apps and they'll see a speckling on the Cape versus a whole town somewhere in Western Mass, and so that's probably where it's going to get the GAP grant first.
Yeah. By then, they'll at least list the 9 towns on the Cape that they have determined are underserved, and they're going to be at least mentioned in their grant application. So
if they identify specifically certain towns, they have to use the money in those towns. Period.
Right,
but not for the entire town, just for parcels is what Brian was saying.
Right, but the point is that as Brian and Jed have pointed out, once they bring that major middle mile infrastructure to the town, then it's a much easier process to get them to start making service available to more people. It's the big investment for them up front is getting it over the bridge, getting it down the street. And I know I was driving down Shore Road yesterday, and there were 2 Verizon trucks, and I'm pretty sure they were pulling fiber right down Shore Road.
So, once they start passing non-customers, they're going to offer it to every single house that they pass. Okay, that's how they make money. And as Tony pointed out, if they get 30 or 40% uptake, they're making money off it. They can amortize whatever funding they've got, their loans, their bonds, and they will make money over the course of time. And if you're absolutely right, Jed, if the middle mile is built with this grant, they're going to serve everybody they can get to or offer service to make their to pay off their bonds. Okay. So the consensus of the committee is that we will not send a letter at this time. I will call both Verizon and Comcast and tell them that we're generally favorable with them trying to serve underserved areas. We cannot write a letter at this time because of the requirements of open meeting and the schedules of the select board and our own committee. Okay?
Very good.
Right.
Okay.
Unless for some reason Mary Jane has some information that we don't, and she feels that it would be in the town's interest to override our suggestion, which might be appropriate if she does have, some communication that we're not privy to. And, and that would be up to the select board.
Okay. Again, Anne Marie, if you could ask that question of MJ, or do you want me to call her and ask her?
I'll see her at 10. I can ask.
Okay. And then get back to us right away. If it turns out that is the case, what I will do is I will put an agenda together for 0800 Tuesday. So we can meet. And then I will nominate a subcommittee to draft a letter, depending on what MJ wants in it, thinks that the committee wants in it, and we'll have something ready for the meeting on. She can put it on the agenda for the select board, and we'll have something ready for that meeting on Tuesday evening. And if not, we defer to round 2, and I'll just go ahead and make those phone calls. But I will wait to hear from you before I make those phone calls back to the 2 companies. Okay.
That sounds good, because we don't want to give up the chance of, Verizon's obviously making some effort at this point. And, from personal experience with them in my previous home, it would be a big plus to the town if we had, more than one vendor.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we know the advantages of competition here.
We all know that.
Okay. So that takes care of item 3, correspondence.
Actually, I was going to ask you, doesn't a lot of this fit under the grant applications and whatnot?
It does, but it was triggered by the phone call from Comcast to the administrator's office. Okay, and that's what triggered it there. And I
understand that, but I would, if I were just writing these, I would be inclined to say this phone call triggered an extensive description of blah blah blah. Please see below under the grant process thing. Can't do
Sounds
that?
Great. Yep.
Okay.
Just drop that into the section down below, and we can go forward from there.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. We now move on to item 4 here, which since we've already taken 45 minutes just to get through correspondence, we really need to spend some time. Um, the First, I want to thank Tony and the subcommittee for putting together the list of priorities here. The one thing that immediately became obvious when I got Tony's first list is, boy, there's a lot of stuff there. And Anne Marie, before you go, I want to get your feeling. My fear is I don't want to wear out our welcome with the select board with a lot of this detail here. And my fear is that if we keep bringing things before them, they're going to really basically they're going to tune out, and we're not going to have much effectiveness in advising them. And I sent an email around that kind of stated that, and maybe put just refocus some of the main things into three big groups as a suggestion. But what is your reading from select board subcommittee or other meetings about how they see us, what they want to hear from us? Are they hearing too much from us? Do they think we're getting too involved in the weeds on this? Are we sorting through the weeds enough to get them the high level stuff and showing them the forest? I'd really appreciate some input.
I think the committee has done a lot of background work, no doubt about it. And I think that this committee is at a point now where they can make decisions on and focus in on priorities to advise the select board. So as far as the select board goes, they only know that we've requested these letters for specific actions to be taken. And that first priority was the equipment from Comcast. And the other priorities was, trying to collect some data that's necessary for decision making. So I think, this is the perfect opportunity to really focus in and prioritize when you come in January, is like, these are our, main priorities right now, and moving forward, this will be our focus area. I don't think, you're in, yes, you've gotten into weeds of things naturally, but I think now, with regrouping and focusing in, you have a general program or vision and mission to focus in on now.
Okay, very good.
So whatever you decide today on prioritizing, and I would suggest prioritizing, as much as maybe 4 major priorities as the focus, and then start doing a little more, getting back into the weeds of things in order to progress those priorities and advising the select board. So for instance, if a priority is moving forward with, what it would take to have our own municipal light, then the next steps would be, what is that going to look like, right? What's that program look like? If the priority is about, our focus on trying to go for B funding, or our focus is trying to go for additional grant monies, well, what does that program look like? I think those are the next steps that this committee, once those priorities are in place, are going to have to accomplish. So if you come to the town, if you come to the select board and say, we want this grant money, well, the first question is what for? Right? And unless you have a strong program and support to back that up, then we take that to town meeting, or we take that as a select board and decide, okay, this is a capital project that's really important, and what we need to do to move forward in order to accomplish it. So.
Okay. Very good. Okay. Excellent. Okay. I'm going to turn it over right now, just in terms of the looking at the list of priorities. It's a little bit ahead right now. Let me get back to my agenda here. But I think both the spreadsheet and also the text down below give us a lot of latitude here, and clearly the ranking of the priorities pretty much falls in with the most urgent right now, which seems to be to get line up what support we can for gap funding, for BEAD funding, et cetera, and everything that's needed to support that, including speed tests, et cetera, maybe the digital equity study. Um, uh, I'll turn it over to the committee right now, but that seems to fall out naturally out of the table here.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I think, a lot of us, we know that there are speed issues within the Cape, but we need the data, and that's how we build our case. And I don't know if we have a mechanism to get to existing data, or if we need to put something in place, like New Bedford did, to generate our own pool of data so that we can prove that there really is an issue, so that we can go after grant money in the future.
Well, MBI has already done some pretty beautiful maps of the problem. Since they have access, it's not MBI, Cape Cod Commission has done some great mapping. They have access to some of the MBI speed test data that they bought off the Ookla. We definitely need more refined data if we're going to go after a challenge application for sure.
Okay, so how do we go about obtaining some of this data?
I think if I'm not mistaken, the Cape Cod Commission has been, David Still has been digging into whatever is publicly available, and he's kind of our gateway and has been very open about getting us those data, summarizing it for us. So we need to stay very close to the commission as they go through the rest of the digital equity study, and I think as this starts to come out, I think we ought to just publicize to everybody in Bourne how bad their service is. I think that from what I understand, that's what the company, I can't remember their name, but Sean Gross, who's the contractor for New Bedford, said that New Bedford plans to do is show the data that they've gotten from their school speed testing and let everybody in town know how badly they're being served by the incumbent and how much they need an upgrade.
Yeah, we went through that with Sean on a call. He showed us the New Bedford maps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did they compare them to what the existing maps or existing assumptions are?
Well, the FCC maps, right? They only reflect what's advertised as being sold, which,
of course,
in New Bedford and on the Cape, it's the same. It basically shows that everybody gets adequate internet. So there was a big difference.
But that's my point. If you can say this is what they're claiming and this is what we're finding, then you have something to present.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So they have already sent all that data to MBI. That for the New Bedford testing data has already been sent along.
Okay.
How do they go about collecting it?
What they did is they put a small agent, if you will, on all the Chromebooks for all the students in middle school. And then when the students took the Chromebooks home, that agent basically ran continuously doing speed tests.
Could we do that?
Absolutely.
Of course we could.
Yeah, we're in the we have not heard back from Chris Oliver, and my suspicion is Chris Oliver is the technology director for the Bourne Public Schools. He was on the call with Sean Gross, and he is bringing that proposal to his administration. And Gross just sent an email the other day, very quickly, saying, "Gee, time is a wasting here," and his calendar is filling up with other clients. In other words, other school systems that are doing exactly the same thing, pursuing the same money. And as of now, I don't think Chris Oliver has gotten this through his administration yet.
Well, my understanding of Chris's comments were, one, this is easy to do, shouldn't be a problem for us, and two, You guys are paying for it. Let me know when you have the money.
Well, what's the agent, and how much does it cost? And
well, so though the cost is about we have to do a contract with Sean Gross. So we didn't so basically we have to go through a process of getting a request for a quote from Sean. We have to go through the town procurement process and raise the money. Sean said he thinks we should get a hold of Josh at MBI and ask MBI to pay for it. He said that MBI is willing to do this. And so anyway, that's how Chris didn't seem all that worried about doing it as long as it was paid for.
Is there some sort of range as to what this might cost? I mean, we're looking at
no idea.
$500, $10,000, some.
I think it's in the thousands.
Yeah,
we would be okay to reach out to Josh because the already signed letter to MBI says, I believe it said we requesting tools to do this speed test. So this would just simply be a follow up to MBI since this has already been a approved comment, so to speak.
Oh, very good, Brian. Okay.
Didn't we also ask in that letter, which I guess is still up for approval? I believe we asked MBI to reveal the Ookla data in a more granular way, and because we said we know they have it, but they're not making it available.
Sure.
And I'm wondering whether or not, if they're resistant, we could perhaps enlist some legislative help.
Maybe.
That a little pressure from them.
I think we're well positioned to follow up on that.
Can we wrap up the conversation about the
priorities
conversation? So
yeah, we'll get to that later on. Every one of these has a tangent we can go off and spend an hour talking about.
So from my understanding of the call that we finished with Sean, so there's two avenues we have to go down. One is, and maybe Anne Marie can help with this, but I believe there's a formal procurement process with the town we have to go through. So I think we have to issue at least a request for quote. The fact that we're going to a single source, I think there's a special form you have to fill out for that. Could be wrong, but anyway, we got to get a quote out of Sean. Number one, that's one path. I don't know if that's just Bob doing that or if we need a committee vote or not, but that's one path. The other path is somebody needs to call Josh and confirm with him that he's willing to pay for it. So those are the two things I think we need to come out of this meeting with actions on.
Well, what I will do,
if that's what you want to advise the select board on, if that's the part of the program because you need this, right? Then in January, that you should lay that out exactly what needs to be done.
Okay.
That would be part of what I was talking about earlier is, okay, there's a big reason why we need to assess these speed tests and we'd like MBI to pay for it. These are the steps we need to take.
Okay. And I think that's fine because when I read the BEAD Volume 1 and 2 response, I think I saw June as the deadline for submitting the data. So I think if we go into January to the select board and say, here's a speed test program we'd like to undertake, I think would be in fine shape.
I also think we'd probably want to recommend we don't just limit it to the schools. Everybody, get the data from everyone. And
that's a different program, right? I mean, the Sean Gross program is specifically about loading up the Chromebook. So then we need another path. A third path would be then how do we collect speed test data? Because it isn't just the actual result of the data. You need additional information around the data point. I forget all the details, but I know IP addresses there. And there may be a few more that you have to fill out for the test, for each individual test data.
The real difference here, of course, is the school system owns those computers. Okay. So if we were to try to get other voluntary speed tests done by, say, all of the people on this call, and ask other people in the town to go and load up this software, we've got all kinds of other considerations. There's going to be people who are going to complain about privacy, et cetera, et cetera. So,
Yeah.
that's a whole nother conversation. But having said that, New Bedford, a much bigger municipality than us, from what I could see from the data, correct me if I'm wrong, Jed, they had 8,000 different.
They had tons
yeah.
of data.
Yeah,
Remember
using the middle school kids as a proxy for the whole population isn't really a bad solution.
Right. So
okay.
New Bedford as Bourne, they have one middle school, and so when the laptops went out, they covered the whole town. So my proposal would be, if we want to augment that data, now we go down the UCLA row with Cape Cod Commission.
Mm-hmm.
I've requested access. They said they had to check on the license agreement and all that, and they haven't gotten back to me.
So to me, those are the three elements of the program. Then are get a contract with Sean by going through the town procurement process. Contact Josh about paying for it, and contact David Still about getting more detailed UCLA data specifically for Bourne.
I think we approached David Still to have him approach Josh, since he has a better relationship with MBI. MBI seems to trust the Cape Cod Commission. So potentially if we approach the commission to handle it, potentially they even do it through their own procurement process.
So in other words, you mean MBI?
Yeah, I would approach David Still first, because he's basically the data guru on the Cape. I'd go to him and have him suggest, do we have the select board ask, or do we just have the Cape Cod Commission ask nicely?
Okay. So
I will do that today.
Can I suggest that? All right. So you'll talk to David today, and then maybe in the sort of, I kind of got interested in this subcommittee idea after the work we did with Tony and Catherine. Maybe do we form a subcommittee to create a speed test program?
I think that's a great idea.
Okay, Jed,
it's a major priority.
So it's
me, Bob, how we do it.
It's me, Bob, and who?
Brian.
Right.
I can, promise myself no new projects, but
well, you're already doing this one. Okay, you're in the middle of this one already. Okay,
that's why you're the politician, Bob.
Okay, Jed made the motion. Who seconded it? I can't recall, but
Wendy did.
Wendy said it was a great idea.
That counts. Yeah.
Okay. And the three volunteers for this were Jed, Bob, and Brian. Okay. Any other discussion on this subcommittee? And shall we say a formal plan due back at our first meeting in January?
Yeah, great.
Okay. We're not in a panic if we don't have to have the data in. We just have to have the kids do this data collection in the city, in the town, before school gets out.
June. Yeah, before June.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No other discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Nobody opposed. Okay, thank you. We'll move forward. Have we lost Anne Marie here? I think we have lost Anne. Okay. Okay, very good. Okay. It would seem to me that the speed testing and the data on lack of service is the gateway to all of this immediate grant money, both the gap funding for which will be the companies, not the towns, and the BEAD funding.
It might help indicate a path forward too, because if we find that the whole town 100% is defective, it might lead us down one path versus another. If say we start seeing Buzzards Bay popping with bad issues, it might change the game plan here.
No,
exactly. I think the data is going to be really helpful.
The companies are going to use that as drivers too. So they're looking for, frankly, getting the most new customers with the least cost.
It's solution agnostic, getting better data.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just again, looking at the list of priorities. So can we say that the highest priority is, in general, I'm looking at all of the, is to find a way to use somebody else's money, convince someone else to build the system as quickly as possible with the grant money.
Just say that again.
But that's a big overview. Essentially, trying to get somebody else using somebody else's money to build or augment the system that's out there or improve it as quickly as possible.
I wouldn't. Wouldn't say that.
I think the key question here is: are we pursuing the idea of the MLP model, or are we more pointed towards the idea of let's help steer funds to some third commercial party that can do this?
That's a good point. Just occurred to me the other day. What if Verizon came into town and everybody was happy with it? Would we be okay with that as a committee?
That'd be a freaking miracle.
I would, from personal experience, the service that I got in Natick was exceptionally good, and I would be happy with it. Although I admit that it was going to cost me more money per month than the MLP model by a long shot. It might even cost me 80% more per month or more to do that. But on a realistic standpoint, this is what in the email that I wrote to the subcommittee, is that I get this feeling that Bourne, well, it has been for a long time, is a fiscally conservative community for a lot of reasons. And particularly having attended the last town meeting and heard what I heard, I think people are very concerned about every dollar the town spends. And the issue of trying to get funding could really present some barriers in terms of how long it would take and whether or not we would get approval. So if we go the commercial route, we're all going to end up paying more, but it might actually get done. Again, Tony probably has a better feeling for this than I do because he went the MLP route and he knows what it took. I'd love to see that. I just don't know whether or not we could get enough townspeople to get behind that at a town meeting to say, yeah, okay, we approve the idea of going out and getting some bonding and borrowing the seed money to get this going.
Yeah, personally, I think you try and get the highest level of service you can for the town, regardless of the path that is taken. And then I don't think the cost would be exorbitant even with a national carrier. I mean, if then it comes to the point where the town decides, well, we'd like to start our MLP, we could go down that road. I mean, it could be done. They could be parallel paths. Mm-hmm. I think we have to try and get the best level of service we can for the town as quickly as we can because there is an issue.
Mm. And I'd love to have my free time back, but yeah, what do we got to do to fix the problem? And in the long run, it will cost us more working with a purely commercial setup, and potentially some sort of municipal run network, although harder initially because of the getting the town meeting and the funds involved and the bonding. And in the long run, will probably end up being cheaper.
Well, we don't know that. We haven't done.
So we don't know. Plan. We don't know yet.
Yeah.
We need to do let me just ask a really serious.
Let me just ask a hypothetical here. If Verizon has identified a bunch of underserved towns on the Cape and they plan to expand FiOS to them, are they going to avoid Falmouth because Falmouth has an MLP and that's going to solve the problem?
I doubt it. I don't think so.
I don't think so.
The MLP has already come out and said their schedule is to start construction in 3 to 4 years and complete within 10.
So, right, and that's after a 3-year process to set up the MLP. Okay,
right.
So that's a long road to hoe. My real fear here is, and this is going back to what John just said, is that Bourne is a very fiscally conservative town, and we would have to. I think it's important. We need a long outreach and education program to the citizens as well as to the select board about if there are long-term advantages to an MLP, we need to start communicating that. And it is not going to be something that gets done. Probably even the first submittal to a town meeting couldn't happen until 2025.
And one question too that's got to be pinned. So whenever time you say MLP, I'm just kind of penciling MLP/enterprise fund, since there's some differences there that potentially could matter. And Quincy was advised to go one way, and other towns have been advised to go the other way. So that's still, we still got a lot of unknowns to sort out, or at least gather from the towns that have recently been advised one way or the other.
So, and then something else has come on, at least into my mind, listening to Bourne and some other towns, and this is the idea of a private-public partnership. So the last discussion in Falmouth is they're not going to go to the town meeting and ask for any money. So they're not planning to raise taxes or get any funding from the town. That's their current approach. Instead, their thinking is that they're going to partner with a private concern, and presumably with somebody who would be the ISP in the long run, and that they would put up the initial capital, and in exchange for that, get an exclusive contract to be the ISP for some period of time. And so by doing that, they're able to do the whole thing without raising any town funds. And that seems to be the undercurrent of what's happening in Falmouth. No town funds to build the network.
Mm-hmm. And do they have suitors
that would certainly appeal to town meeting?
Go ahead, Tony.
I was just wondering, they have suitors that would go along with that model, because it's taking all the risk off the town and putting it on the ISP. Are they dealing with multiple ISPs, or I'm just wondering what the
I don't know. I don't know that they have anybody specific lined up to do that. We have talked to one company called Matrix Design that has done this twice, albeit in very small, very rural towns. So they went in and funded the build out and then sold off their interest. They were actually a equity partner in this particular case. So when they took on the interest, they also ended up owning part of the network in the beginning, and then they sold it back to the town over a number of years.
Yeah, I think the difference there with a rural town like that, there's probably no other choice.
Correct.
Right. So you have a much lower risk profile there than you do with someone who, there are opportunities here for customers to go in different paths. So.
Yep. Yeah, totally. I know. I get all of that. I'm just putting that on the table as another potential. We talked to Calix about this too. I don't want to jump ahead on the agenda, but this came up in the funding discussion with Calix too. So
yeah,
just another way to look at it, because I think Bourne is Falmouth is looking at town meeting the same way that we're just discussing, that by the time they get to hand out money after they've covered some of the environmental concerns, the sewering, and building a new firehouse in town, there's not going to be any money left.
As someone who's funded projects and seen the cost of the private equity funds to put up the equity in these public-private partnership deals, it can be quite costly. So sometimes it might end up being cheaper to just raise government bonds than it is to do it all these ways.
Remember, I think in either next town meeting or the one after, right, they're going to put an override on the agenda for the firehouse. And, I don't see us coming right behind that with another one for a network. I mean, it's going to be a while.
From what I understand, the borrowing packages for the town are pretty much lined up, counting the firehouse and maybe some sewer work that they might have to do in the Buzzards Bay area. The indebtedness for the town is fully loaded for the next 5 or 6 years, just in terms
so you're adding an asset, so it changes the calculation a little bit.
That is true, but at the same time, the normal voter who comes to the town meeting doesn't really understand that. They just see more debt. They don't really understand the details of it. That's one of the areas where we could probably do some education over time. But my guess is it wouldn't surprise me if at some point the MLP in Falmouth comes back and asks, "Gee, does the southern part of Bourne want to participate in this, or does the western part of Mashpee want to join us in this?" Just because we want to be able to get a company in and offer them an opportunity to expand and bring in other customers on board. Again, one of the scary things for any of these is that Comcast is everywhere. So if anybody else comes in here, for a new company to get 30 or 40% uptake when there's already an incumbent in there, lousy as it is, that's a that's a risky business decision as far as I can see.
Right.
Tony, if I'm not mistaken, the Whip City Fiber, when it was going to all of the towns in the West, one, they had no service to those towns at all, like Shutesbury. And number two, the first round of MBI grant funding paid for a lot of the middle mile infrastructure out there, and there was no competition. So so if anybody wanted internet service, if they weren't trying to do it over a cell phone, they had to go with Whip City.
That's correct, and I can tell you, and I said it before, in Westfield, where there was an incumbent, Comcast was there. As much as everybody complained about Comcast, it blew my mind what a hard time we had trying to get to our 30% level. I mean, we're literally building out. We didn't build out the whole city. They're still building out Westfield because we solicited interest from different neighborhoods. We call them fiberhoods. We split the whole city up into 80 fiberhoods. We had people saying how much interest we had, and we look at, okay, how much is it going to cost us to serve this fiberhood? What's the interest level? What's the payback? And that's how we built out in Westfield. And even so, people would show interest, but then when it came time to take service, a lot of times they wouldn't take service. We even had the sitting mayor at the time had fiber in front of his house, and he wouldn't even take service. I had a meeting with him, and I could not believe that he wouldn't take our service. But anyways, all I'm saying is it can be a challenge once there's an incumbent, and whoever is going to build their own system has to have a good marketing department because you really have to push it and sell it.
Right. So I think we have two data points to add to that. Taunton, which has Verizon and Comcast, built their own network, and they're at about 1/3, and they're selling internet for $40 a month. And they said the biggest selling point against them is that they don't offer a triple play package. People with the triple play on Comcast tend to like it, even though they're paying a lot. The other point is in Falmouth, when Open Cape came into Main Street and offered the service, the first thing Comcast did was drop their price in half.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the two things to expect, I think, if we were to go forward with an MLP.
So with all that being said, like I said before, I think it makes the most sense to take parallel paths. We try and set ourselves up for funding in the future, knowing it's a long-term process. But in the meantime, if we can support entities that are going to increase service levels in problematic areas, that we do that as well to get better service for our residents.
Yeah, I agree. And I like Bob's idea of perhaps assuming that Falmouth is successful, taking on, because let's face it, our major problems are on this side of the bridge, which is adjacent to Falmouth. So it would be a hop, skip, and a jump for them to come up 28 or 28A or whatever, and maybe expand into certainly at least Catawmet, Pocasset, and maybe Monument Beach, which are areas that we've identified as having problems. And whereas if we go with a whole town-wide service model, then we have to also worry about competing with people on the other side of the bridge who have more choices than those of us who live over on the southern side. So I like the idea of perhaps pursuing Falmouth and seeing if there's any interest there, because I would think that if there's a contractor that comes in, they'd say more business. Absolutely, we're interested.
We should definitely be continually talking with Falmouth to see where their head's at on that, because scale is always going to help.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, that was one of the other general. Let me get back to the other spreadsheet here. Um, One of the other priorities that I see is in general keep talking to other people who are talking about regional solutions. You know, that includes talking to Falmouth, that includes talking to uh, the Technology Council, talking to anybody else the Cape Cod Commission again is doing a regional study too, and there may be something that goes to the Assembly of Delegates that's some kind of a proposal for a regional solution. And we need to keep talking to those folks. And one, we learn best practices, and we learn maybe bad practices, learn from other people's mistakes, and go forward from there. Um, but that's something that's a little more long term. There may be um, collective grant applications that go in that we want to stay abreast of, and we want to get on board if it looks like there's an advantage to the town. One of the what I've heard from people outside New England or outside the Northeast is that uh, some of the companies that are supplying rural counties, uh, they tend to have, for whatever reason, it's much easier for them to get bonding funding and to put large, widespread proposals in for big areas. There's a guy who's a multi-billionaire doing this. He's been doing it for 15 years now, first with cable and now with fiber. Uh, you know, anyway, but he's put together consortia that include multiple companies and multiple municipalities and built big systems very quickly. I don't know if we see an opportunity like that come up, we can't avoid it. We can't afford not to get involved.
Yeah, I think the other thing I was going to say the other thing to point out simply is that if we propose the MLP model, that we also have to point out what the economic advantages would be. In other words, as Tony has pointed out, employers were suddenly interested in moving to Westfield because, oh my God, what great service they have there. This is a good place for us to set up shop. So I think that's one thing that might possibly appeal to the town should we be at the point of saying, okay, we need to underwrite a bond of some kind or another.
Mm-hmm. By the way, just one competitor here is that for any company that locates anywhere near Open Cape's backbone, Open Cape immediately offers enterprise service. Okay. That's one of the reasons they routed it that way. They'll immediately offer, 4.9's dependability enterprise service at $4,000 a month. And if you're a reasonable sized company, $4,000 a month for connectivity, for sales, for whatever is trivial in terms of an expense. So anything that's big that's coming in, frankly, is going to get served by Open Cape right away.
Good point.
Okay?
This may or may not be something to consider, but I don't know if any of you noticed that Atrius Health, which is a big honking company, is building an enormous new center in Plymouth to consolidate all of their other centers in Eastern Massachusetts, Plymouth, Duxbury, Kingston, couple in Plymouth, the Cordish Company and all that, all of them except their outpost in Bourne. And I know the outpost in Bourne gets just dreadful service, and I wondered if perhaps they would be an in to maybe sneak a little money out of Atrius.
Where's the building located?
Which one?
The Atrius
and Bourne.
The Atrius and Bourne. It's on Technology Park Drive, down near the high school. It's on this side of the bridge.
It wouldn't be far from Open Cape if they want to get it. That's a pretty short. Where is it? Technology Park.
Yeah, that little road that goes past the back door of the high school and out by the campground and joins 28. They're in that little triangle.
The backbone's on 28, so they're literally
They're
there's no
right next
build
to it.
out. They just if they want to pay the 1,000 a month for a gig, they just can get it right there.
I don't
Jed,
even know
could
if they
you
know that.
Jed, could you take over for 2 minutes? My
Sure.
computer just gave me a battery warning here, and I'm not going to be able to continue, so I'm going to go find a charger. Be right back.
All right.
Yeah, I'll
Technology.
explain where the backbone is. There's Atrius IT manager if you know someone there, and I can, just tell them it's literally right next to him. It's an easy conversation.
Okay. I will mention that.
Yeah. Information has already been gathered. Happy to share it.
Okay.
The other thing with Open Cape is that they seem to just charge whatever people are willing to pay. They don't have like like a lot of companies have a little board with their pricing on it. You can't get that from Open Cape. And the interesting thing when we looked at the Bourne contracts, they're all different for the same, you're getting the same service, but each of those contracts was for a different amount. Right? They range, I think some were 400 a month, some were 2,000 a month, but it's the same service.
Oh, yeah.
But
It's really
did it
weird.
cost more money to build out to some of these other companies, and that's why their cost is higher?
Well, in the town of Bourne, the buildings are next to each other, right? They're all the school buildings. Some of them are even next to each other. They're different times, right? They went on different dates. So the earlier ones paid more. That's what it looked like to me.
They can basically do whatever the heck they want. It's their pricing.
Of course,
If they want to charge a buck a glass for their lemonade or 25 cents a glass for their lemonade, they can do that.
Yeah. I'm just saying that seems to be the way they operate is that, they'll whatever they feel like charging that day is basically what goes in the contract. And I think Steve Smith alluded to this too, right? When we asked him about fiber swaps with Crown Castle, and we said, how much does Open Cape charge for, a pair to Boston? And Steve said, well, it depends on the day, right? What day was it and who was he selling it to?
Yeah, I'm trying to find some old emails from the Falmouth Library. They have like a 40/40 service, dedicated. And I think they're paying like $250 a month. They were like one of the first customers or something, and they had a ton of grant money and built there. So it depends on who's paying. Is there grant money?
Yeah.
What they can afford, all that.
But to be fair, I'll say that Comcast isn't a whole lot different. My experience with Comcast is that, one day I got a big price increase and I called them up and complained. I said I wanted to change my service, and then they kind of gave me a smorgasbord of options. How much do you want to pay, basically? So I think Comcast does the same thing, right? If you go up and say that, I need to change my service, still, again, what are you willing to pay, and we'll figure it out. It seems to be their strategy too.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So are we
done with this?
I don't know where Bob was going. We were still reviewing the prioritization ranking, but I don't know
were.
if we to discuss it any further. Anybody have any
Yeah,
more?
as far as I can tell, it looks like the main priority is getting lining up support for the grant programs, and then we
have speed testing.
And well, that's part of that because that's collecting data for the grant program. And after that, it looks like a priority is looking at the MLP model versus going the commercial route. And that's more data collection and more networking with other groups. So are those the two big priorities, or are we going to talk about more priorities?
We got to respond to the BEAD because there's a lot of gotchas after I went through all 90 pages. So we're going to have to make sure we get comments in by the comment period, or there's some traps left in there.
That's the line by line response to volume 1 and volume 2.
Yeah, I got a first draft of the letter done. So,
and is that deadline December 15th?
I think it's about the 15, 12 or 15. I think it got moved a couple of days. BEAD comments.
It got moved. Okay, I'm back.
All right, so we were just wrapping up the prioritization discussion, and Wendy was summarizing it, saying that the main priority in the beginning is to do things to help us raise funds, and then after that, to do things to pursue potential MLP.
Versus going the commercial route.
Right.
Yeah, at first it's raise the funds for anybody, so to speak, challenge, get an app in for the town, that kind of thing. And as we get more data, we can decide whether it's in-house, outsourced, owned, and outsource the operation, which model makes sense. But we need to make sure funnels of money are coming towards Bourne to solve the issue, because it takes money to fix this.
So, Tony, do those two priorities more or less reflect your subcommittee's greatest priorities also, or is there something else we should really look at right now?
No, that pretty much covered it. And we also discussed that if there are any quick wins that could come in, small items that could be done quickly that could have a decent impact, as those come in, we could look at those as well.
Such as?
Like we did the letters to Comcast and Verizon in the past that didn't take a lot of time, but could, set us up for a favorable outcome.
I mean, I think those are wins right here. I mean, the fact that Verizon and Comcast are even coming to the town, to me, is if they improve service for two people, I'd say, okay, well, we've at least made some progress.
Don't be so optimistic. It can be offensive too, based on the language of the bead readout. If they can be using GAP as a blocker for bead, so got to keep in mind this could also be not in good faith and just in protectionism of their business.
Good point.
Yeah, line by line, after going through that bead, and I was a lot more concerned. With even down to the exact wording of sentences that had traps in them. It was actually mistakes too. They cited sources wrong.
So we get that coming up.
Yeah, in terms of schedule, in terms of the two different paths here, when do you folks think that the GAP and the BEAD funding will be fully committed and run out?
Well, the schedule on GAP runs through, I think, the middle of next year. Right? There's two phases. There's the initial one, and then the second one, I think, is April. And then the BEAD funding doesn't start rolling out until the end of 2024, so it probably won't get paid out until 2025.
But in terms of how it's going to be allocated, who wins and who loses, when will we know that?
I don't think you'll know on BEAD until the end of next year.
Yeah.
That's what it looked like. So the schedule if you look at Volume 1 and Volume 2, right, the data for the area challenge doesn't have to be in until the end of June. And then all the incumbents get an opportunity to rebut that data. That's going to take us into September. And then there's the whole scoring process towards the fourth quarter next year.
Well, so MBI in the BEAD document says they don't anticipate there being any serviceable locations left for the BEAD funds. So we might get a preview based upon the GAP results, since wherever they're building GAP might be it. So.
Okay. Now, the point I'm making is that that rollout, and we're going to know in a year what we're going to get and what we're not going to get. Okay. And at that point, then we can really get serious about, an MLP model or something like that, that we can start to talk up around the town, say, hey, we didn't get money for this and we've got still have these deficits. And the only way we can see going forward is an MLP route mimicking what Falmouth is doing.
Well, we need the entity to do the applying for the BEAD, so we can't get an MLP done in time for that. So the town itself would have to be applying for the BEAD funds.
Okay. Well,
did I misunderstand something? Because I thought for us to get this, we have to be able to put up the town has to commit to some kind of seed money. Is that
That's
correct?
the gap. That's the gap. Well, that was the
Just
gap,
the gap funding
discussion.
Okay.
I don't know about BEAD.
Did
So-
anybody see that thing, that newsletter that Brian sends around, or that he signed me up for, where there's a mechanism in some of these funding things to count donations in kind, like, but and all that, and if the town can't come up with an actual chunk of money, there's a lot of in-kind contributions that can be counted for that purpose.
I don't see, the only ones for the town were free permits that I saw, which is worth almost a few $100s maybe, and then access to town property in town polls, which we don't have. I mean, I couldn't come up with much.
But they were also they were looking at like contributions where citizens did work toward these activities, like what we're doing. There were access to the polls, even though there's some discussion as to who owns which poll and who can get what, but whatever it is, that still counts as input.
It's a $50 permit.
Before the Muni grant funds were moved to a different route, the plan was to use that as the in-kind contribution for BEAD, but that's no longer an option now since they got moved to a location where there are no underserved nearby the routing.
Yeah.
Just to give background on this, and I don't know if it's a federal procurement rule or not, and but we just got a grant through EPA for our water quality project in Hen Cove and Pecasset, and the way EPA wanted to monetize the in-kind contributions was ridiculous. Essentially, hard labor was going to be minimum wage. This is people digging, planting, etc. And the most we got was $25 an hour for highly skilled in-kind contributions. And it added up to peanuts, and it was really difficult. We had to come up with a third of the grant as in-kind. And it's only when we got some guys to donate some equipment time that the money actually was met. Federal rules on that tend to be relatively strict. I don't know if if that was just EPA, but that's the second time I've come across monetizing in-kind contributions, and you can't get there from here. That's my opinion.
After reading the BEAD, this is why it's kind of, since submitting to Tony my prioritization, the line by line moves up in my opinion, because given the co-funding requirements in BEAD, I think we should, in our follow-up letter, protest that a municipal applicant has to come up with this. The state should possibly waive or help provide this. The way BEAD has been written has it looks like they didn't even consider a town might try to pursue the funds at all. So there's no consideration for timing of the government to approve funding and whatnot. So I think that might need to be part of our letter of protest about the co-funding.
Jed, have you covered this at all? But my concern about the line by line response is if this has to go before the select board. Did you say they moved the deadline on this back a bit?
Well, we don't know, but we're not that far down on the agenda yet. That's covered under the area challenge model. So I pushed it off to that. So we were just trying to wrap up the prioritization. That was where, Wendy kind of summarized, go for the short-term wins in terms of whatever funding we could raise right now and do whatever we can there. So basically supporting GAP and BEAD. And then beyond that, anything that would further the decision as to when and whether or not to pursue an MLP.
Okay. Moving on then.
Should that be the basis of our report in January to the select board? And then just, we can describe some of the details under each of those as necessary.
That sounds like what Anne Marie was recommending that we do.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd really like to hear what their response is to an MLP model, to see whether or not they, feel that's something that we should pursue. Because I mean, if you look at, what you circulated from Cambridge was really well done. They had done their homework and they showed what it was going to cost, per subscriber for the city. And of course, Cambridge, you look at it as a place where they absolutely want the fastest internet service they can get. Right. And I'm not sure that, we get the same response, but I mean, I think that I want to know whether or not the select board feels it's worthwhile for us to pursue putting together some deep research, what's going on, and then get some feedback.
I'll second that.
Right. I'm all for it too. So that was, I think they're called CTC. They've done a number of these across the state. And in fact, they've done a number across the country. These are what's called feasibility studies. And you can look at the one, I think I've sent it down a million times. They did one for Falmouth also. Very worthwhile. So I think that would be the first step, right? In fact, Falmouth did this before they went to town meeting, right? They did the feasibility study first. So that would be step one, if we're going to go down that road, would be to ask for funding to do that. Now, the way that Falmouth raised the funding is they got it an earmark and the state budget. It was Dylan Fernandez. It got $100,000 earmark, and then I think Sue Moran got a bigger one because they got almost $300,000 from the state. That's how Falmouth net.
Wow.
Okay, so if we're looking for things to put into this select board report for January, I don't think we have to get that granular.
No. I'm just pointing out. No, so John,
I understand that, but I'm trying to move this along because it's already almost 10 o'clock.
Great.
So outline form here. So for the plan, including for the select board report, as Anne Marie suggested, that we give them what our priorities are, and we've just listed 3 major priorities, and describe to the select board basically what those would look like if they are accomplished. Right. And is there anything else that we need to put under this?
No, but I would suggest that a small group of people go offline and put together the report for the select board.
Yeah, I think we already decided we were going to do that. Did we not?
I don't remember that. Did we? We put together a speed test subcommittee.
That's true.
Right.
I'm proposing a select board presentation subcommittee. Just to get, I really think it's a lot better if we just meet offline and do all the work and just come to the committee with more completed stuff.
Works for me.
Yeah, I agree. Subcommittees tend to be more agile, and you can get a lot done offline.
Yeah, and if you keep it at 3, you can meet whenever you want without any official agenda.
Well, I'm going to take that as a motion, and I will second it.
Okay.
The tasks we got to do necessitate it, so I'll third.
Well, that's a motion on the floor that's been seconded. Any discussion on that? Just a question in terms of delivery to the select board. What do we want to target to get on perhaps their last meeting in January to get on the agenda for there? And
yes.
I do a
That's a good idea.
A targeted 10-slide presentation at most.
That's what I was thinking, late January.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good idea, because the holidays are going to be very tough for me in particular. I'm going to be in and out of town, so that'd be good.
As is I. By the way, let's just talk about our schedules for the rest of the month here, if we can. So we can align these things, and it's relevant to that producing that report. I am going to be out of town basically from the 19th to the 29th. So I'm looking at a calendar here. One moment.
And I'm out of town from the 9th to the 16th.
Yeah, and I'm in and out for December, and my schedule is unclear, but I will probably be at least spending some of that time on the West Coast, which means it's 5 a.m. for me to make a meeting. I'm just a new grandfather, and my son lives in Northern California, and my schedule is not quite clear yet as to what it's going to be.
Yeah, same here. I'll be going back and forth to Connecticut and up to my eyeballs and grandchildren and health concerns for my sweet husband and other things. So December's a mess.
I'll be on
So
the time zone, so I'll be actually be better than normal.
Looking at the schedule, I'm just thinking that next Thursday may be, given everybody's travel plans, the 7th would be the last full meeting.
When does the select board meet in December? I'm trying to think through.
5th.
On the 5th.
That's it?
They meet on the 5th, and I think they meet again on the 12th. And then
So
after
we're going
that,
to need to be on the 12th agenda with a line by line on BEAD if we want to get any official comments off, which I think we want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So
we
would have.
So we would have to meet on the 7th.
Yes.
right.
And I'm thinking like you're thinking, Bob. It's in our next meeting is January 4th.
Let me just look at the calendar here.
So we are going to meet on December 7th and January 4th. Is that what you're thinking?
I'm putting that proposal on the table.
Works for me.
Yes.
All right.
So we need some subcommittees to handle some stuff given the time frame for sure.
Okay.
Right. So we have 2 already.
Okay. I'll volunteer for the writing the report thing.
I could volunteer for that, but I'm going to have to do it probably from out of town, which means that I'd probably be doing it via email as opposed to actually live meetings, unless
that's fine. I mean, because I'm looking at what I'm going to do is mostly organization and editing, and I'm used to working with remote writers all the time, so that's not a problem.
Is there a third? So we have Wendy and John on that committee.
I'll jump in.
I ought to be on that too.
Or Bob, either one.
Well, Bob's going to present it, so he probably needs to be on that committee.
All right, then that's fine. I'll be a standby then, and you step in, Bob. And I'm going to try and while I'm out of town, I'm going to look at the videos, keep in touch with all the various correspondences, and try to follow the 12/7 meeting because I think I won't be here for that one. I'm not sure yet.
So that's me and Bob and Brian or Jed.
No, it's Tony. Bob, Wendy, and Tony.
Okay. Got it. Alrighty. And John's an alternate.
Right.
By the way, Jed, just real quick, way ahead of time, but in January, if we have a meeting on the 11th, I may be able to kick it off, but I may need you to chair it. I've got I may have to have a skin procedure that day, and I cannot switch that. So that's at 10.
I'm around in January for the first 3 weeks.
Excellent.
Okay. So we got December 7th, January 4th, January 11th, and you want to do the 18th also?
Potentially. Yeah, we can talk about that on the 4th.
Okay, we can decide that later. Okay.
Yeah, it would depend on how it aligns and where we end up on the select board schedule, on their agenda as to what we need to do. There are 5 Tuesdays in January, and I'm not sure they're going to be meeting absolutely every week there. Okay. Let me get down to the.
So where are we then?
Okay.
So I don't know. Have we transitioned yet to the regular agenda, or are we still on the prioritization?
I hope we're going back to the regular agenda because I'm running out of paper.
Yeah.
The one other item I'd like to include on the on priorities, and this has to do with the long-term plan, is again just keep in touch with other entities, any other entity that might be putting some kind of a regional plan or proposal together, and
that would be liaison with cable and broadband committees in other towns for 5B. We already have that on the agenda.
Yeah, hang on a sec. Yeah, that's true, but I'm talking about just in terms of priorities. And then and frankly, if especially if we move towards an MLP, some kind of a long-term education process for the residents as to the benefits of an MLP. Again, I got scared off when we went to the digital equity charrette, and I forget what they finally changed the name to. The response was underwhelming. I think we probably put out 1,000 points of communication around the town, and we got exactly 10 people
nothing.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is not something that's high on the radar screens from anybody in town. Even people who are underserved don't necessarily know or care that they're underserved. So we need.
I don't think they know that there's an alternative to being underserved.
Well, that's true, which falls on us, I think, to do the communication and education there over the long term. Yeah. But anyway, that's just my thought. That's something we have to keep in mind for all of this. And anybody who hears any of this is going to be very naive about all of it, especially in terms of the select board presentation. Going to have to go over what BEAD is, what the GAP grant funding is, what the federal opportunities are, what MBI is, because every time I talk to somebody who hasn't been in the weeds like us, eyes glaze over. Okay, and I have to go back and start at ground zero. So we need to keep communication in mind.
Yeah, this is why when anything that I put out, I always define the terms over and over and over and over again. If I have to tell people what BEAD is every week, somebody new will read it that week, or
which is why this other subcommittee to write this report desperately needs you. Okay, you're the best communicator among all of us here. Okay.
I'm just a calculator over here.
Well,
Okay. We are done with prioritization. Many thanks to the prioritization subcommittee. This is, again, something that's going to get attached to the minutes, so people are going to be able to see it. And that was an excellent job. Now we can move forward to our regular agenda, and we can get through much of this very quickly. The first item is liaison with the Technology Council Broadband Committee.
Anything
new beyond
review process for media outreach is on my list here. Do you want to say anything about that, or have we just covered that?
Is that
I have some outreach that you didn't get picked up. So I just poked Falmouth and asked them, because they're hiring a manager right now. They're looking to hire a manager. And asked them, is it a full-time job, part-time job? They're basically flexible. They said they want to cast a really wide net and get someone good. And the terms and conditions they're pretty much open season on who it could be and on what conditions and, how many hours and all that. And they got like 90,000 right now in funds to hire somebody. So,
right. So just to be clear on the 90,000 is money in the bank that they got from Falmouth Net, and then they plan to go to the town meeting in May to basically get permanent funding.
So we need to watch that just to see how that evolves. And this is a town where the whole process was put together by a citizen initiative. So there was a groundswell of hundreds of people who signed the petition initially, and then I think 150, and then an overwhelming vote at the town meeting to go forward with this over the opposition of the select board. So we don't have that yet in town. That's my real fear.
Is there anyone in Bourne who could run it for Falmouth? Is kind of the direction I'm going. Like, do we know anybody who's not on this committee that has the talent and has the skills that we can refer to them? And indirectly, I think it could help Bourne in the long run if there's such a person exists. That's a big if. Refer them over to Falmouth, and potentially down the road that helps Bourne, since that's another person.
Well, yeah, Tony.
Or you, Brian. Okay,
Brian, you'd be the ideal person. I think you should probably make some more money doing what you do now,
and you wouldn't have to travel so much.
I make decent money.
Not only that, but you're the expert on funding, and you understand enough of the technical issues to know what goes on. But I'm just hoping that whoever they hire, that gives us a point of contact. Someone that does a full-time job rather than trying to reach some nebulous committee and say, hey, let's talk. We're interested. What can we do to work with you?
Well, I don't know that it'd have the authority to do that. I think that would still go back to the MLP. But that aside, I have spread the letter around a little bit myself. I went to Matrix Design and, others.
Which letter, Jed?
What's that?
Which letter are we talking about?
Oh, I shouldn't say letter. Let's call it, what is it? The request for services. So Falmouth has posted a request for services.
Mm-hmm.
And I've passed it around.
They're looking right. They're basically looking to hire a manager to help them organize their MLP and get necessary bids and line up financing.
I understand all that. I just wanted to define the terms.
Services, right. Falmouth has issued a request for services. That's what really the official name for this is. And I think January 15th is the deadline. Could be right or wrong on that. I can't exactly remember, but it's something around there that they're looking for responses, and then they'll go through an official interview process at that point.
Okay, well, I'm writing all that down under liaison with committees in other towns.
Yeah, that's where it belongs.
That's where it belongs. Okay, so review process for media outreach. Are we ready to address that, or have we done that already?
The one concern, this is just expressing a concern that Anne Marie had, is that anything that we send out officially to any of the media, we approve in the committee. So this would be, just the short summaries that the Wendy has been doing, et cetera. And that if we do contact the media for any other reason, and I get calls all the time from Paul Gately and Roush.
Well, thank goodness. It was hard getting their attention.
Yeah, anything that I say that they ask about my opinion on this, I label as my opinion. You may have seen the article in the Cape Cod Times, and I made sure he put in something that says this is my own humble opinion, and it hasn't gone through the committee. Because Anne Marie says, look, we're advisors to the select board, the opinions, et cetera, and the official response should reflect what the select board thinking is based on our advice, not our advice or individual comments. That's the real fear.
Right. So should we have something on the agenda then to review any release we're going to make to the media?
That's second fine. That as a recurring item. I'll second that proposal.
I think that's wonderful. The mechanics of it are that if we want to keep things timely, then it's almost 10 o'clock now. They want stuff that they can put in tomorrow's edition by noonish or 12:30. So when we're done, I can whip up a quickie. And I'll send it around. I'll send it around to all of you, and you can approve it or not. Or it's going to have.
I think no.
It has to come into the meeting. It has to come into the meeting already prepared.
So we're going to be at least a week behind.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Nothing like being timely. I was an ICU nurse. You dial up the drugs. The guy gets a better blood pressure, or he doesn't. He lives. He dies. But get on with it. That's sort of how I look at a lot of things.
So does the full message have to be blessed by the committee, or can we, in generalities, do like, hey, this week we want to convey to the public X, and if we're all on board with it, then Wendy can handle the exact wording? Like how?
I think the exact wording has to be approved. This is where Anne Marie was going at, that she wants the committee to approve the exact wording.
If we have to wait for the select board to approve anything,
No,
it's just us. It's just us. So there's a week delay here, or if we go on a multi-week schedule, eventually we will. It'll be a couple of week delay, and some of the stuff that gets in the enterprise, for instance, is weeks or two old. Some of the stuff that gets into the the Cape Cod Times doesn't get published until 3 days after the event happens, so things don't move that fast in the print
Certainly
media.
true, but that I don't think that's an excuse for us being so tardy.
Understood, but I think the process needs to be that 24 hours ahead of the meeting, the proposal is sent to the committee, and then in the meeting, and then we can even comment ahead of the meeting, and then during the meeting we review the final text and vote for approval or not.
Because we have lots of time to do that every week, every meeting. Okay.
Oh, we could move the meetings to Wednesdays, and it gives Wendy an extra day.
Well, no, because coming out of the meeting, we'll have final text.
Okay.
Right.
So we have plenty of time for that.
Okay.
I'm not sure there's anything in today's meeting that we necessarily need, because we're waiting for a lot of responses.
Totally.
I think maybe we try it this way, and if it becomes impediment to the work we're trying to do, then we maybe have to bring it up again with the select board.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we try it the way we've been asked. See how it goes.
Everything Wendy's been, sending to the press that I've seen has all been stuff that's been included in our public meeting. I haven't seen anything that she's put in there that wasn't already out there. She's already just basically.
It was ahead of the release of the minutes.
Oh, okay, that could be.
Yeah.
Certainly true, but it's got to be congruent. I mean, I'm not very good at being a fabulist.
It's all a matter. It's not content really. It's a matter of process. And again, we're advisors to the select board. So the select board or the administration, I won't say they want to keep a thumb on us, but they're not giving us a really wide leash, and they don't intend to.
Well, the good news is that it looks like the enterprise has actually taken the initiative to pay attention to what we do and print stuff, even if they don't get something from me. And so, praise, reinforce.
They love the content. This is an active area, and they're keeping track of it. And both them and the Cape Cod Times are, want to know what's going on, and they see column inches of stuff that they can put in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So are we more or less done with that? So just anything that gets written that goes out to the media is going to be approved by the committee before it goes out. That's the end result there.
Okay, fine.
Okay. Now at 10 o'clock, let's see if we can move through the agenda really quickly here. Anything else with the Cape Cod Technology Council? Has there been anything recently, Brian?
No, not with the tech council, other than the call we were all on and discussed already.
Okay. The next item, anything in the other towns? I think we've already, Jed, discussed the request for interest.
Yeah, we're done there.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Mass Broadband Coalition. I filled out the form, and I sent an email to the fellow's name is Robert Espinoza, I think, in Fairhaven, who appears to be one of the ringleaders of the coalition. And I just sent an inquiry. We're interested in joining, and just asked what are your terms of reference, etc. And I haven't heard back from either of those. The guy is on the select board in Fairhaven, so I really don't want to make a phone call to him right now and give him a little time to respond.
Right, and Anne Marie said that officially the select board would have to approve joining.
Right.
So all right, we'll leave it on the agenda for next time.
Yeah, and again, it was just an inquiry about what are their terms of references, etc. And I said, if we did join, if the town did agree to join, I said anything that involves any votes, any participation in applications, etc., would have to run through the select board. And I said we're only advisors.
What does term of reference mean?
Essentially, what's their charter? What's their scope of work?
Got it.
I'm sorry. That's the European language for for anything that's a charter or scope of work.
That's why I ask.
Sorry, doing Europe work on the side here too for one of my clients.
Okay.
Okay. Next, with regard to New Bedford and the speed test material, and I have an action item that I'm going to call David Still to get him to approach Josh Eichen at MBI to see if they will come up with the money to pay for the Bourne school system to put the app in and to fund Sean Gross's company.
Right, and we have a speed test subcommittee now.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's okay with you, Bob, I'll send out an email to kick that off today.
Okay, great. But again, I'm going to make the first call to David Still.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, we covered a lot of that earlier, and I can refer back to that.
David Still should be supportive of that.
Yep.
So he's a good ally.
Letter of support for grant funding.
I think we killed that.
Yeah.
We beat that to death, I think.
Yeah.
Do we need to continue with that going forward in terms of an agenda item?
Okay. So what are we just going to say? Deferred until to a later date?
Just remove it from the agenda until someone asks for one.
Deferred pending further requests?
Yeah, maybe deferred because that one could come in between now and the next meeting.
Yeah,
so we probably leave it as deferred.
Yeah. Deferred pending input from the select board, frankly.
Yeah, that's something that we should definitely put in our, letter to them, to the select board, our report.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Follow up on letter sent to Verizon regarding FiOS. Again, waiting a call to MJ. It may have happened already, but we're waiting for input from the select board on that.
They have information, we don't have it, and we may or may not get it.
Mm-hmm. What we get actually might be the application that they submit on the 11th. We're going to get more out of that than anything else.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, moving forward. Area challenge model. The letter to MBI went out. They generally, the select board generally liked the organization. Just a little bit of clarification there. We asked for everything in there. We haven't gotten any response. We may not see a response until we see the any revisions that they may have made in their challenge process or anything else. Just keep our fingers crossed. The most again, the biggest thing is that even before the letter, they blessedly did move the challenge period back. Okay, now moving on to the big 800-pound gorilla here is the line by line response to the BEAD proposal.
One question before we hit that, maybe a technical thing. The letter, how was it submitted to MBI? Was it just exactly as signed sent, or did they add the cover letter that they say is required on their site for the submittal to mail it? Or have they uploaded it to the online comment form?
No, my understanding is it was sent by mail.
We might need to resend it to make sure MBI's got it, because technically their language here requires the public comment form being attached to it. So I want to make sure it doesn't get ignored due to a technicality. We might have to follow up with MBI and be sure they've received it. Or have them acknowledge that they have it.
So there were not revisions done by the select board to this, or yes?
Oh, there were.
Okay.
Essentially, the revisions. Some of it were procedural. They wanted to make it clear that the letter was coming from the select board, with input and advice from SciTac, but nothing more than that. The select board wanted a kind of a bullet point executive summary at the front. We did that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then expanded on the 8 or 9 elements in individual paragraphs further down.
Okay.
So just look at that again. But they were generally happier with it, and they got a roadmap through a lot of the details that Brian started with, and everybody else contributed to. Cool. They got lost in the weeds, and they just wanted to see, just a higher level roadmap. Okay, so I'm going to call Maria and ask whether that public comment form was added at the front, and the best way is just to upload it directly. Do you think, Brian?
Not going to be able to upload a PDF because it's a form. I might just have to make sure it's remailed with this comment form. It's literally just a couple check boxes, like who you are, what are you commenting on. Like literally write in "see attached letter" and send it. I just don't want a technicality to cause the submittal to be ignored.
Okay, I'll check with Kathleen. She'd know the details of that. Does these things all the time. Okay, line by line response. I think, if I'm not mistaken, there's another select board meeting on the 12th. Okay, and the deadline for the more comments on the BEAD proposal is the 15th. So there is time for the select board to look over a line by line response to this.
Had a first draft.
Brian, God bless you. You've got this first draft together. I looked at all of the places you commented on, and I,
well, I got you one amazed. Better. I got it actually turned it into text, so I got you an actual letter. Should I?
Well, can I make this? Well, right. My proposal would be to work this offline and bring it to the next meeting. So I'm looking at the select board schedule. So they're meeting on the 12th. It's a early budget review meeting. So my guess is they could squeeze us in. That's their last meeting of the year. They have a sewer commissioner meeting on the 19th.
Yeah. Just to point out.
Go ahead, Bob.
Just to point out in the main letter that was sent already, we explicitly reserve the right to submit detailed comments afterwards, after we've had a chance to go through the whole thing. So we can, it should be pro forma. This almost could be a consent agenda item where they basically rubber stamp it.
Great.
Okay.
So if Brian and if anyone else is interested want to put the letter together, we'll put it on the agenda for next week. It looks like Wendy's interested. All right.
Oh, sure. Yes. Send it along, dear. I'll fix it for you.
All right. So cool. So this would be the line by line subcommittee.
The big thing is I flagged everything I thought already, and I've got a draft letter. I guess given the feedback, we got to make sure we have a bulleted summary in the beginning. Given the amount of things that have to be cited, I've included links back to the original document. And so it's a hefty read. So I'm not sure how we want to consolidate comments. If anyone, or maybe everyone want to take a read through and forward comments to the committee?
Sure. I've read through it. I've read through it. I've got very few comments. I can send them to Brian and Wendy.
Okay. Yeah, this is something I used to do all the time when I was, editing people's submissions for publication. And it's probably a lot of reading, but once you figure out that a lot of the references are, shall we say, charitably not applicable, then that streamlines things quite a bit. All you have to do is say, the author cites this and this and this and this to support this point, but upon reviewing those citations, they have nothing to do with this point. Next, that's usually a fairly powerful way to deal with that sort of thing.
So the question is, who's the third? Is it going to be Bob or Tony? Who's going to be the best third?
Who knows this stuff best? I guess it's me. Okay. So, what I will do is taking your draft, I will write put together a high level summary on this too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
okay.
I got a draft past what I sent you. It just got done literally 30 seconds ago and sent to me.
Jeez. Okay.
Okay. Another $30 donation to some help, along with a little bit of writing time and the markup version I showed you.
Okay. Well, as I said, let me try to put together a high level summary so this gets through the select board relatively quickly.
Yep.
Yeah. So let me forward. So yeah. Okay. So if it's the three of us, I will send out everything I got. You can decide how you want to approach it and propose a meeting time for a subcommittee.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe Wendy, Monday morning.
Let us look and see. Which, next Monday, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm good. What time?
Can we do 0900?
Sure.
So is that 9 a.m. or 10 a.m., 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. in Thailand, Brian?
Back to being just swap the a.m. and p.m.
Okay.
9 o'clock. Okay.
And I will forward out what I've got to the two of you. So
yeah, get that out soon.
Okay. The next item we have here is involve the Cape Cod legislative delegation.
I think, didn't we do that already? I thought that letter was forwarded. No? I thought I saw an email that sent it at least to Exiaros.
Yes, I did. Okay. That actually may fall under the media or other parties' outreach. I wonder if that had to be approved by the select board in terms of contact with the delegation. But
I think so. I mean, right. I think the whole point was that we waited for the select board to approve the letter, and then we just sent it on to Ciaros and said, "Hey, this letter was."
That's what I saw.
That's all. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
So, do you want me to make sure that it goes? Well, it went to Exaros. Do you want me to send it to the rest of the Cape Cod delegation?
Yeah, I think that would be useful.
Okay, I have those.
I sent it also to Moran, but it can't hurt to send it to all of them again.
Well, the only other one would be
Dave Vieira.
Yeah,
Vieira doesn't give us the time of day.
Absolutely true. Yeah, I think it's a waste of time to send it to him. It's a waste of keystroke.
Yeah. Well, is there some reason we can't send it to other people too? Like, I don't know, Sam Patterson
send it to,
or
they don't. Well, we could, but I mean, in terms of Cape Cod delegation, they don't represent us at the State House.
Well, that's true. So you want me to not send it to anybody else?
Well, I think anything that involves all of Cape Cod ought to come from the Technology Council, or could be the Cape Cod Commission does not necessarily respond, but to the county commissioners or somebody like that, if they get behind something like this.
Right. I think the Cape Cod Technology Council already sent something to I think it's the infrastructure committee. There's a joint committee on infrastructure, I believe. And I think Fernandez and Julian Sir are the members from the Cape, and they've sent something out to them already.
Okay.
Did we copy the Cape Cod Tech College?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I sent it to Steve Smith and to Gene Curry, and I said circulate far and wide.
Okay.
Oh, so maybe since we're approving stuff to the media, maybe we could say Wendy can forward the letter to the press if it hasn't already gone off. It's already been approved and signed and written.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's very good.
Okay,
we keep them in the cadence of we've got stuff for them every week. We just say it was Thanksgiving.
By the way,
sorry, that's the MBI letter that we're talking about.
Right.
Yeah, the
by
first
the way,
one.
In that,
we need to vote on that.
No.
Okay,
because it's already done. I also, by the way, I've already done that. I already sent that to Callie Remillard, to Roush, and to Gately.
All right.
In terms of trying to get that circulated, and I've gotten a couple of calls from Gately about asking for some of the details there, and he was just asking, again, more education for him than anything else.
Well, I think we finally got their attention. That's nice.
Yep.
I loved the final draft. That was a very sharp, well-written piece collectively. It was better than the sum of the team is better than the sum of its parts on that one, and it shone right through there.
Yep. It was very good. It was succinct, and I think it's hopefully if our legislators get behind it, it'll make a point with MBI.
One would hope.
By the way, that executive summary, that has involved only one issue, but the executive summary kind of style, I think that's about the level for the whatever PowerPoint I end up presenting to the select board at the end of January. That level of
very
detail.
Easy to get lost in the weeds in this. So yeah, we have to be very cognizant of how do we. This is the big picture.
And unfortunately, for some of the folks I've been talking to about this, again, I'm a details guy, if you guys haven't figured that out. And I start talking about the details, and then when I start to see the eyes glaze over, I realize I got to take a giant step backwards and start at the beginning and define everything. And then I get nods of, oh, now I understand. So.
Yeah.
Anyhow, okay.
Because they don't like to reveal that they don't understand by asking questions.
Exactly. Precisely.
So you have to assume that they don't understand. A brief anecdote on that. I used to teach nursing students who were from Vietnam when I lived in Seattle. And how would you like to go to a very technical program in your third language after Vietnamese, French, and now English? And in their culture, it's the teacher bestows knowledge and the student learns it. I know Brian knows this. And if the student asks a question, that implies that this teacher has not done his job and the teacher loses face. And so these kids would get lost in weeds, but they would be scared to death to say anything because culturally that was just like not on the table. And so finally I went to the ESL department at the college and said, what am I doing wrong? What do I do here? And they explained all this to me. And I thought, well, yeah, okay. So our next meeting, I said, okay, you're here now. In this culture, I lose face if you do not learn. And if I say something that you don't understand, you have to ask me to clarify it. And it is my job, if I want to save face, to explain it to you this way or this other way or that other way until everybody understands it. Got that? And it scared them, but it really did. They were real nervous about it, but they got the picture. And so they learned a little something about the culture, and they learned something about fluid and acid-base balance and all sorts of other stuff. So I think there must be an analogous way to approach the select board, who is also culturally unable or unwilling to ask a lot of questions because it makes them look like they're going to lose face. So what do you think?
Absolutely. There also is that same attitude applies to the big Brazilian population on Cape Cod. Having had Brazilian students in Brazil, graduate students, they even in lectures, they're very reluctant to bother you with questions until they realize that, in fact, they're not going to get in trouble for asking questions, and they're not going to appear stupid for asking questions.
Right.
So
there's a lot of nodding of heads, and I understand. Then you find out that they don't. Having numerous Brazilian contractors, you do excellent work, but you have to be very careful. So but I'm amazed sometimes when I have watched this and been at the select board at what they do comprehend and the vast areas that they have to be able to jump back and forth from these very complex fiscal problems to personnel issues. It's an awful lot for them to have on their plate. So I get that they just can't always focus on this. They don't have an area of specialization. They have to be generalists. So we have to try to make it as clear as possible.
And I think you say that up front. You say, I know you have a lot to think about in your job, and these are the absolute most important 3 points or 4 points for you to focus on. And if you need clarification on any of them, please call me or raise your hand and let me give you a sentence or two to straighten that out. And that gives them permission to say, yes, we're overloaded, and thank you for trying to make it easier for us. And then maybe they'll be inclined to listen.
The key thing with the select board is we need to keep this issue as a high priority need of the citizens of Bourne. Okay, yes. Because if it falls off their high priority list, it disappears off of Marlene's list of important things to do. Okay, and completely disappears, and to the point where even requirements to do stuff get ignored. So just keep that in mind. Anything we can do to discuss the priority and urgency of this in front of the select board just keeps it on their radar. Okay,
the main thing
finishing with that.
The main thing, yes.
I'm going to move forward now. Let's discuss the Calix consult and feedback from the meeting.
So
Jed, you want to go forward?
Yeah. So basically, he went over how to apply for BEAD and GAP. I don't think he filled in a lot of stuff for us on the info there. The emphasis on his end was to really build a bonding relationship with MBI and our state delegation, which I think we have. So there wasn't a whole lot I think he added. I think it was good for Catherine. I think it got her up to speed on a few things. But I had already read both documents. I had read BEAD Volume 1 and 2, and I had read the NTIA document, so I was pretty well up to speed. We also got into this discussion about public-private. He said he's seen that, and he said that would certainly work for us. What else? Now the discussion was on matching funds and the competitiveness of GAP and BEAD, and he pointed out that a lot of the private companies are probably going to do 100% match, and that between the 100% match and track record, that they're going to be very hard to beat for funding. So it was a good discussion. We met, and again, we opened up a line of communication there. They're willing to help more. So that was kind of a nutshell there.
Jed, just a side issue for this, and this goes back to other towns. Did it sound like, has anybody heard any indications that Falmouth might be looking to, say, apply for GAP funding, or they're looking for somebody to, other than the requests for solicitations for interest, to apply for the BEAD funding?
Right.
Any formal mechanisms there?
Yeah, it came up on their agenda a couple of months ago, and then what they've done is they've deferred it to their general manager. So basically, the idea is to bring the general manager in and defer to the general manager to do the heavy lifting on applying for any funds. Okay,
good to know. We need to stay in touch with that guy, whoever he is or she is. Okay, so we're done with that. The last item I have is a point of contact for New Bridge fiber infrastructure. Brian sent in another email to his contact at the core. And Brian, as I recall, I didn't see you got a response back yet, did you?
Got a response. He's asking around. I said the select board was trying to find the contact as well and having a little trouble. Maybe do you know who it is? And he's going to ask around his contacts as well to figure out who it's supposed to be.
Okay.
I think Emery was also asking around. I just figured, since I had another guy at the Corps email, just say, hey, they're looking. Do you know who it is? So we can report back to the select board who the appropriate contact is.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we'll see what the response there is. Have we missed anything on this long agenda at 10:30?
I hope not.
I can't believe we did.
Okay. And ask him if he can call Josh Eichen at MBI to see if they will pay for the school speed testing.
He might even just call the director, not just Josh. So his judgment on that's probably leave it to Josh. Leave it to David.
Again, they've lots and lots of detailed talking back and forth between the commission and MBI all the time. Okay, we're going to have a call on Monday at 0900 to go over the draft line-by-line letter that Brian just sent, and I'm going to try to put together an exact summary, bullet point, if I can. I have to call both Comcast and Verizon today and just tell them that a letter can't come just because of the press of the schedules, etc. I'm also going to call the town and ask whether they attach the public comment form on the front end of the letter. Okay. If I missed anything else I'm supposed to do immediately.
Did you want to check with Mary Jane first to see whether she said something different to Verizon than what we're proposing?
Well, Anne-Marie is going to call me back on that. So she's at a meeting, went into a meeting at 10 o'clock. In fact, I've got a text here from her someplace. Something just came in. Oh, where is this? Excuse me, folks. How can I have 5 texts in 2 hours?
Is that all?
Okay. Anne-Marie wanted to know, just to be clear, the letter request is not going to be on the select board agenda, ?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, that's correct. Okay. So I've got nothing back from her on contact with MJ. Okay. So our next meeting is going to be next Thursday, and
the 7th.
The 7th. That will be our last for the year. Jed's got the agenda coming up right now. Excuse me, I'm going to stop video so you guys don't get seasick watching me.
Okay, so same 3 items to begin. Then the liaisons, I left them at the top of the agenda. People okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
I added this media outreach review and approval at the top of the agenda. Is that where we want that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Those should be quick at least.
Yeah, and then I've got these. I put the subcommittee updates all together next.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. I've left the broadband coalition item here. Should we do that?
No, leave it on. Hopefully we'll have a response from this guy by then.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I left this follow-up on the Verizon letter. Is that we want that here? Do we want to do it sooner in the agenda? Do we want to do it at all?
Maybe, how about just a discussion? Let's make it much broader. Just a discussion about Verizon, Comcast, or other companies and their either plans,
future
requests for future plans, requests for support, I think that's all we need.
Just leave that. Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
enough. For the agenda.
Yeah, that'd be
That's
future.
enough. That's general enough to cover everything.
Future plans or futures
Got it.
and requests because they're all requesting.
Got it. Okay. And then do we want
Groovy.
this last item?
Well, I've been looking back at our past minutes and there's no news, got nothing. Nope, nobody,
Well,
nothing.
just leave it there.
So,
Again, the core person is asking around. He may come back with an
we'll
actual
keep
name by
poking.
then.
Okay.
Yep. Next
Anything
meeting,
else we want to discuss?
I don't think so.
How about generally? Let's see. No, I think we're okay.
Okay. Sounds like we're all in
Awesome.
consensus there. I'm going to send this to Maria after we finish this morning.
Okay. Very good. Okay, everybody, thank you for your
Cool
patience.
beans.
All right.
All righty. Thank you
Talk to
all.
y'all next week.
Thank you.
Thank you,
If I
folks.
don't see you all, have a good holiday.
Thank you too.
All
See
right.
y'all later.
Enjoy the West Coast. Enjoy the
yeah.
warmer weather.
Somewhat, yes. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.